Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about something. I just wanted to have some sort of excuse to pretty much test out this new mic I got for the camera right here, which is basically the Movo mini shotgun mic of sorts. They can put it up, you can plop it on top of your camera and stuff like that, your DSLR, or just have it conveniently mounted on a tripod mount of sorts, and then you just do whatever you want with it. It actually is integrated into the interface shoe or whatever, or shoe mount, I should say, which is actually really cool. I didn't think that would be a thing, but it's very convenient. So already that wins some points for me. But with how it's sitting right there right now, we'll see how the audio turns out. But I'm not sure what I really want to talk about for this video, other than for the excuse to have a Movo of sorts being tested out and stuff like that. It just arrived in the mail, so yeah. But basically, maybe I'll just talk about perhaps the situation involving with, well, yet again, Nintendo. Nintendo definitely had some ups and downs, right? Releasing some games, but more of the negatives have been coming out in Nintendo's name, such as the Point Crow situation, where Nintendo is taking down a number of videos with not only Point Crow, but with a number of YouTubers, I believe, specifically on Breath of the Wild videos that have mods, supposedly. But even without the mods, that has been taken down or claimed or warranting the strike on those channels of sorts. So that's been a pretty ugly situation, and I hope for the best for those creators that have been affected in this situation. But mainly what I wanted to talk about was another case where Nintendo kind of seemingly dished out yet another punishment, and in this case seems to be pretty brutal. And basically what has happened is that there was a hacker back a while back that has been serving a sentence of 40 months or so that's about 4 years ish, and basically or was served a 40-month sentence but got out early because of good behavior. This person ironically is named, I believe, Gary Bowser. Gary Bowser is a sort of hacker of sorts and is capable of modding the Switch and has made such mods for the Switch and made profit off of it, along with other members within a team called Executor, I think it's called. And I think Executor basically sells modded Switches under the noses of Nintendo, so they were making some sort of profit. And Gary Bowser just happened to be the one to get caught because he lived, I believe, in North America somewhere, either in Canada or in the U.S. Please correct me for either of those places, but either way, Gary Bowser has been served 40 months, no less, and once he got out, Nintendo yet dished out another punishment, or was he, right? And I actually took a look at other videos, and seems like most people think Nintendo was the one who dished out this punishment, which is basically Gary Bowser is met with a large fine of sorts issued from the court to pay up at least around $10 million worth, and I think it's maybe 14, but either way, that's a lot of money. And so basically, for the rest of his life, he has to pay up at least 25% or 30% of his income to Nintendo, and that's even that, I think he's not likely not going to meet that goal, but we'll see about that. But either way, I just wanted to discuss about this besides the excuse of testing out the mic here, because of course, I play Nintendo games. This channel, has been dishing out Nintendo stuff for a very long time. Especially if you take a look at my old stuff, it's just all Nintendo party games, playing with friends and stuff like that. That's what really Nintendo was all about to me anyway. at least during the well, at some point. But Nintendo has always had this like family friendly sort of vibe to it in comparison to other major gaming companies, and yet here we are, Nintendo just being very fear mongering nowadays. But there is argument between, or there is argument about this situation because people have been saying, or people such as Asmongold have been saying that that's not really Nintendo doing so. That's just the government dishing out that punishment for this individual here. So, do I think it's brutal? I absolutely do think so. But there is an argument to be made. I mean, I initially thought it was Nintendo themselves who, put out this punishment, and then I don't know, the court approved it or something. I mean, I guess that's not how it works here. I mean, when you do think about it, right? When you have two parties going against each other in court, especially like for example, I mean, I guess you could say, during a murder case, and you have the proceedings in court, right? The process, and the let's say the murderer is guilty, right? Proven guilty and all that stuff, and go through all the just processes and stuff like that, and the judge hands out the punishment there, and not so much the family or the victims of that murdered individual, and you never really hear the family themselves giving out said punishment. They're not the ones who specifically give out this many years in prison or something like that. It's always the judge or the court or the government, really. So I guess that's a point to be made, but I'm not sure if that's how it works for sort of like the more corporate stuff, like business oriented sort of court cases. But I mean, that could be the case here, really. And so it's funny how Nintendo, and if that's really true, it's funny how Nintendo is being painted here as like this brutal company. I mean, they kind of are, but brutal in the way of being capable of dishing this out. Now, maybe one could say that the judges were paid off by a large corporation such as Nintendo to, give out such a very like a similar punishment, hey, did they like slip that in there somewhere somehow? I mean, if that's true, man, what a world we live in. But as people such as Asmon do have a point, and so as much as we would like to think Nintendo is the one sole proprietor, or I should say company here, the one sole sort of company or entity giving out this specific punishment, I think it makes sense that the government or the court, I should say, judge and all that, were the ones to give out that specific sort of exact punishment, which is to pay off the $14 million. But I mean, is it something Nintendo pursued? Absolutely, right? Is that what they want? Probably. Do they care if it's brutal or not? Probably not. They probably don't care at the end of it. They kind of just let the court do it so that they can carry on with their business, literally, Probably that's how it works, but who knows, right? It's all about, I guess, sending out the message, right? And I think that's what Nintendo really wanted in the end, and I think that definitely does something, but is that really going to stop everyone from doing it? Probably not. I don't think so. As long as Nintendo continues to not be pro-consumer and not give out the games that people really want, people are going to turn to some sort of piracy or modding and stuff like that for the sake of kind of like trying to exercise their passion and stuff like that, because Nintendo's not really doing so. They've been really picky and choosy, if that's the term for it, for certain things. I mean, let's just take Advance Wars for example, right? This game is not even coming out in Japan, surprisingly. I didn't even know that. I thought this game was coming out like everywhere, but Japan is not one of them. And it's so odd because that's a Japanese developed franchise. But Reboot Camp is not Japanese made, which I realized. There's a bit of a history to that because of unfortunate circumstances, especially with the release dates of past Advance Wars, and I guess Famicom Wars maybe, but I don't know. Maybe the universe is just out for Advance Wars for some reason, but yeah, I mean that's only possible because somebody else, right? At least they were approved by Nintendo, I guess. So that's a little different, of course. But it's really hard to get that thing done, right? And hopefully Advance Wars meets with success, and that would mean more and more stuff like this will come out in a form of remakes, and actually being made by the Japanese companies, maybe, perhaps. That's just kind of how it is when companies act nefarious with their consumers and such like that. People are bound to do stuff like this, and that's why it happens. It's like, oh, what, like, man, why are you guys pirating, man? Like, what, why? Gee, I wonder why. And especially when you start doing all these scummy practices, like making Switch games $70 at some point, especially with Tears of the Kingdom. There are people out there who are not going to, put up with that, and I respect that. I mean, I will get Tears of the Kingdom because I really do want to play it, and obviously I'm not the type to kind of risk my sort of life for that sort of stuff, but for people with those reasons, I don't blame them for it, and it is tiresome to see companies like Nintendo kind of like fall backwards and just act scummy like this, So honestly, that's just my thoughts on it. Whether Nintendo put out this punishment or not, it's still brutal. It sucks, but I mean, I'm not trying to justify the sort of behavior for Gary Bowser. Was he doing it absolutely scummy? Sure, but you gotta see why this is even happening in the first place. Again, I don't sympathize for the man. I don't know him and all that stuff, but you just gotta see why all this stuff happening, man. It's kind of reminiscent of like the 1920s and stuff like that, with the government illegalizing alcohol at some point. And guess what? All the gangs were starting to bootleg alcohol because of those things, right? And the crime rate was crazy back then because of those sort of things. So it's kind of different and yet the same at the same time, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of how it is. We're kind of history repeating itself, sort of, but in a different form, similar end result, and we continue to make those sort of mistakes as a whole. Humans, right? Aren't we so wonderful? But anyways, that's pretty much all I got for this little bit here. Yeah, it sucks to kind of see things like this. Was he in the wrong? Absolutely. But that kind of punishment, man, I think that's pretty brutal. I think what should have happened was pay up some sort of fine, like a reasonable fine, and that's it. You go on with your life, right? But 14 million, and then you gotta pay up for the rest of your life. That's, well, not plus, but like because it's 14 million, he pretty much has to keep paying for the rest of his life, because that's a lot of money for the average Joe, So I think that's that's just brutal, right? Is he a bad guy? Absolutely, but yeah, I guess it's all about sending a message. You definitely don't want to be a hacker, I guess, against Nintendo or any company really. So again, that's really pretty much it on this topic here. Again, I wanted to just have an excuse to test out the mic here. Hopefully it turns out well in post. We'll have to see about that. But if you have any comments, leave them down below. I like to read them. And what do you guys think about the things I talked about in this video, including Nintendo slash the court giving out that punishment for Mr. Bowser. Again, that's pretty ironic, right? And all that stuff, man. I mean, do you think Nintendo's in the right? Do you think they're in the wrong for all the stuff they've been doing in the past, right? Including the Point Crow stuff as of recent. And I don't know. Any ranting thoughts about Nintendo? Like to see that in the comment section below. I mean, we're all about wanting to talk about our feelings for something, and I think we definitely have plenty of that from Nintendo, because I think they really need to get their head out of their ass and start making customers happy again, like myself. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom is one thing, but all the other stuff that's been happening around, it's like, it really makes it harder to be excited for these products, with full confidence nowadays, So hopefully the low point will become a high point as soon as possible, but definitely I'm not going to hold my breath on it anytime soon. So again, really appreciate it, guys. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and all that fun stuff. I have other ways for you guys to help out the channel here, including some merchandise and you name it. So all in the description below. Really appreciate it. And this has been the Hawke Talks, or really spontaneous Hawke Talks on Nintendo stuff, really. So thank you very much. Hope to see you all in the next video, and hopefully this mic will be serving us for the rest of the videos. Sean out.